Okay, let's set the scene. It's January 2026. A full year has passed since Nicolás Maduro's disputed inauguration, and the situation between the US and Venezuela, it's just completely locked in. A stalemate.
Right, it's this incredibly strange situation where you have one man, Maduro, physically controlling the country, but another, the opposition leader, recognized by much of the democratic world while living in exile. So the big question we're tackling today is how did we get here, and maybe more importantly, why does this standoff still matter so much?
So we're going to break this down into 5 key parts. We'll start with why this stalemate is a global issue. Then we'll dive into the core of the problem, the crisis of legitimacy. After that, we'll look at this bizarre paradox involving oil and sanctions, and then the human cost, which is just staggering. And finally, we'll explore the 4 potential paths forward for Venezuela.
Exactly. So let's start with that big picture. It's easy to see this as just a regional issue, but the reality is that by 2026, the crisis in Venezuela has ripples that affect all of us, sometimes in ways you really wouldn't expect. And it really boils down to these 4 things. You have global energy, for one. Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves in the world. What happens there can absolutely move markets.
Then there's the migration crisis, which is one of the biggest anywhere on the planet. And, of course, it's become this geopolitical chessboard right in the Western Hemisphere, where the US is facing off with Russia, China, and Iran. Plus, you have this simmering border tension with Guyana over the Asabaco region. It's a powder keg.
So let's get to the political heart of it all. Because everything, and I mean everything, really goes back to this one fundamental question. Who is the legitimate president of Venezuela?
And the answer is just not simple. It all stems from the fallout of the 2024 presidential election.
Yeah, I mean, just look at how quickly it all unraveled. The election is held in July 2024, but with the main opposition candidates already banned from running, the results come out, people pour into the streets to protest.
And they're met with this brutal crackdown. It's awful. By September, the opposition's candidate, Edmundo González, has to flee the country into exile. Fast forward to January 2025, and Maduro is sworn in for another 6-year term, while most of the democratic world just refuses to recognize it.
And this right here, this is the core of the entire dispute. The official results from the National Electoral Council, the CNE, they gave Maduro a 51% victory. But, and this is the incredible part, the opposition managed to collect the paper tally sheets from over 80% of the voting machines. And their evidence shows a totally different reality. It shows a complete landslide for Edmundo González, with something like 70% of the vote. The gap isn't just a few points, it's a chasm. Which leads us to this bizarre and frankly unsustainable dual legitimacy crisis. You've got Maduro controlling the military, the police, the territory, the actual state. But then you have the US, the EU, and so many other democracies recognizing a president in exile who has the paper trail to prove he won. It's a political standoff that has almost no modern comparison. Okay, so let's shift gears to the economy, because this is where the story becomes a true paradox. Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. Let that sink in. Yet, its economy has been in an absolute freefall for a decade. How is that even possible?
Wow, the numbers on this are just staggering. Look at that drop. They went from producing over 3 million barrels a day down to just 300,000 by 2020.
Right. And even with the slight recovery we've seen, it's still just a tiny fraction of what it used to be. The economic engine of the entire nation has basically seized up.
Now, the primary U.S. strategy has been to use these heavy economic sanctions to try and force a democratic change. But that's a really debated point.
That's a fair point, because while the sanctions have absolutely squeezed the regime, they are not the whole story. You have to talk about the decades of just profound corruption and chronic mismanagement that experts also point to as primary drivers of this total collapse. It's a really complex picture.
And behind all of these numbers, all the politics and the oil, there is this devastating human cost. We can't lose sight of that. This isn't just a story about geopolitics, it's a story about millions and millions of ordinary people whose lives have been turned upside down. Just think about this number for a second. 7.8 million. That's more than the entire population of, say, Switzerland.
It's almost impossible to comprehend. It is the largest displacement crisis in the modern history of Latin America. A whole generation has been scattered across the world, just looking for a chance to work, to eat, to be safe.
And for the people who are still there, my gosh, life is just a daily battle for survival. Over 80% of the country is living in poverty. You've got these chronic shortages of everything: food, medicine, even gasoline.
And a public sector salary for a teacher or a nurse can be less than $10 a month. This has also fueled a massive brain drain. Over 300,000 professionals, doctors, engineers, you name it, have been forced to leave. The long-term impact of that is just devastating.
So this brings us to the final, crucial question. What happens next? Where could Venezuela possibly go from this point of total gridlock? The analysis lays out 4 potential scenarios for the next few years.
So you have these 4 paths. The first, and most likely, is just more of the same, a prolonged stalemate. Maduro holds on, sanctions stay in place, and people keep leaving. Then you have some more dramatic, though less likely possibilities. A negotiated transition, which would require huge concessions from everyone, or some kind of internal fracture, the military turning or the economy completely imploding. But really, the overwhelming consensus is that the current deadlock is just here to stay for the foreseeable future.
And that really leaves us right here. It's a complex game of geopolitics, of oil, of power, and the path forward is anything but clear. Which brings us to the question that, at the end of the day, is the only one that truly matters. In this unending stalemate, with no clear resolution in sight, who is it that continues to bear the heaviest burden?